can never leave room 217.
Sarah Mitchell built a career on this friction. As a British investigative journalist, her reputation rests on a decade of using high-fidelity recording equipment to prove that hauntings are usually just faulty wiring or clever marketing. Her next target was the Blackwood Inn in Vermont. It's a massive, rotting estate that has remained largely untouched for decades, protected by a local folklore that has kept professional investigators away for generations. The data behind the hotel is surprisingly consistent. For 70 years, an unexplained tragedy or disappearance has been recorded in room 217 at almost exactly 10-year intervals. No arrests were ever made, and no physical evidence was ever found to explain the pattern. Sarah arrived intending to break that cycle. She brought an arsenal of 21st-century monitoring tools to confront a curse that has essentially been frozen in time since the mid-20th century. The contrast is immediate. Sarah's modern vehicle and digital equipment sit in the shadow of a structure that feels fundamentally disconnected from the surrounding countryside. As she steps out, her phone indicates a stable autumn temperature, yet the air around the entrance drops 10 degrees in a matter of seconds. The physical environment is already contradicting her digital readouts. Inside, she is met by Thomas, a caretaker who has watched the hotel decay for 40 years. He stands next to a grandfather clock that has been stuck at 12:17 since the last recorded incident. Thomas hands her a brass key and notes that while the guests of room 217 never checked out, their keys were always found sitting on the front desk the following morning. He provides Sarah with 3 specific instructions: ignore any knocking at the door, do not respond if her name is called, and stay away from the mirror between 12:17 and 12:30 a.m. Sarah treats these directives as dramatic theater. She proceeds to the room under the assumption that her cameras will capture a rational, physical explanation for the hotel's reputation. Inside room 217, Sarah begins the process of converting the antique space into a high-density data collection site. This schematic shows her setup: infrared cameras, recorders, and motion sensors tracking the door and mirror. Every inch is accounted for. The monitoring fails instantly. Without explanation, her primary battery drops from 93% to 41%, and the coverage areas flicker and go dark. At 11:58 p.m., the room falls into a complete, heavy silence. The external sounds of the wind and insects stop, leaving her in a space that feels hermetically sealed from the rest of the world. These power failures and atmospheric shifts serve to isolate Sarah, removing the technological layers she uses to interpret her surroundings, and forcing her to rely entirely on her own senses. At midnight, the first rule is tested. A slow knocking begins on the other side, and the brass doorknob begins to turn against the lock. Sarah's reaction is procedural. Expecting to catch a person in the hallway, she lifts a handheld camera, moving toward the door to document the intruder. Just as she reaches for the handle, a woman's voice whispers from directly behind her. It isn't coming from the hallway. The plea, "Don't let him in," originates from inside the room she thought she had secured. Sarah's cameras and sensors were focused entirely on the door and the mirror, based on the belief a threat must enter from the outside. By prioritizing external monitoring, she remained blind to what was already present in the room. The history of room 217 suggests that bringing modern logic to an ancient curse doesn't provide a way out. It simply ensures that the observer's final moments are recorded in high definition. Just before sunrise, hotel staff found Sarah sitting near the entrance of the Blackwood Inn. She was unresponsive, her eyes fixed on the horizon, but she was tightly clutching a single yellow document. That paper was an original legal filing from 1958. It contained a signed exoneration ruling that proved a local teacher named Daniel Carter, who had been executed decades prior, was actually innocent of the crimes he was convicted of. Because Sarah had been conducting a paranormal investigation, police were able to immediately seize and review the multiple infrared cameras she had positioned inside her locked hotel room. But the recovered footage showed a digital impossibility. For the entire night, every camera recorded room 217 as a completely empty space. Sarah never appeared in a single frame, and the door remained bolted from the inside. To understand how physical evidence could be retrieved from a room that was, at least on camera, entirely empty, we have to look at the events that took place in the hours before dawn. Sarah's night began when her digital recorder captured a voice that wasn't hers. The whisper told her to search the room, leading to a hidden panel inside a wardrobe. Behind that panel was a newspaper from October 1958. The lead story detailed a scandal involving a judge who sentenced Daniel Carter to death, ignoring evidence that would have saved him. This diagram tracks the flow of corruption. Local businessmen paid the judge to secure a conviction, bypassing evidence, leading directly to Carter's execution. The fallout was immediate. Days later, the judge checked into room 217 and took his own life. While the judge's death was ruled a suicide, the room retained physical anomalies authorities couldn't explain. Deep claw marks were found scored into the walls, and every mirror in the room had shattered simultaneously. These remnants suggest the room became a permanent container for the judge's unresolved guilt. At 12:17 a.m., the investigation took a violent turn. The temperature plummeted below freezing, and the electrical system failed, leaving the room in total darkness. Sarah noticed that the large mirror on the wardrobe was no longer reflecting her or the room behind her. Instead, the glass showed a courtroom exactly as it appeared in 1958. Inside the reflection, Daniel Carter appeared in chains. He didn't speak of revenge. He told Sarah he only wanted the truth to be known. Behind him, the reflection of the judge appeared. His face pinch-cordicted the same terror that likely preceded his final moments in the room. Suddenly, invisible forces gripped the judge and dragged him backward, pulling him into the absolute darkness at the back of the courtroom. The mirror shattered into the room, and in the chaos, Daniel handed Sarah the original document that proved his innocence. This encounter suggests Sarah wasn't just witnessing a memory. She acted as a necessary witness, required to carry a physical truth out of a space where it remained hidden for 60 years. The document Sarah retrieved was later used by historians and government officials to officially clear Daniel Carter's name, correcting the historical record. But the camera footage remains the most significant mystery. How did Sarah hold an object and speak to a witness in a room that her cameras recorded as empty? Every camera Sarah had placed inside room 217 recorded exactly the same thing. The room was completely empty. Sarah never appeared in any of the footage, as if she had never been inside. Today, the Blackwood Inn is abandoned, and room 217 is permanently sealed with heavy locks. The case suggests that some historical events are so intense that they displace the physical space around them. These moments don't disappear. They wait in sealed rooms for someone to step off the timeline and finally bring the truth to light.